Vyatskoye is a village in the Nekrasovsky district of Yaroslavl city, 35 kilometers away from the city center. It is surrounded by exceptionally beautiful natural landscapes which stretch over the banks of the Uktomka River in one of the most ecologically friendly and historically significant districts of the Yaroslavl region. Vyatskoye village has a unique architectural heritage. It is also an outstanding example of historical restoration. This old village has a unique plan structure with buildings from the 18th and 19th centuries, over 50 of which are listed structures. These buildings were originally the homes of both merchants and peasants, tea houses, taverns, and shelters for the poor. Presently, there are more than 30 restored buildings, which are included in the Vyatskoye Historical and Cultural Complex. These buildings form the basis for 12 themed museums. There is a restaurant museum, a hotel museum, a cinema, and a concert hall, and also several formal conference rooms. The present village has a developed infrastructure, and it is visited by more than 300,000 tourists from around the world annually. Its rich cultural heritage and the love and devotion shown by generations of its inhabitants to their community made Vyatskoye famous. It is now rightly called the most beautiful village in Russia, but it wasn't always so. Early in the 21st century, Vyatskoye village was a pitiful sight, a sea of mud during the spring and autumn, with poor and hazardous roads, and even the pure Uktomka River fouled with silage. The two former magnificent churches lay in ruin. The Assumption of the Godmother Church was a ramshackle ruin, and the Church of the Resurrection, although still being used as a place of worship, was a pitiful, heart-rending sight. Houses and even listed buildings fell into decline and disrepair. The memorial to the heroes of the Great Patriotic War of 1941 to 1945 was abandoned and uncared for. A unique memorial to Tsar Alexander II, known as the Liberator, erected on the anniversary of the abolition of serfdom in Russia, was lost forever. Village Square was turning into a rubbish dump. The village outskirts were even worse. Deterioration and decay were everywhere, and with little or no work, many villagers left or simply gave up out of frustration. However, the light of life had not been fully extinguished, as children were born into the village regardless of the circumstances, and it was the new generation that raised the alarm. And the pictures that you see were taken 10 years ago by local students. That is how they viewed their small homeland.
Ой, не пойми что, бутылки битые, все не пройти, не вон на установке, да и везде накидано.
Vyatskoye youth took these pictures out of concern and attachment to their village. They were born and raised here and were able to see beyond the rubbish and the grime to the actual beauty of their village. And they, together, decided to restore the village to its former splendor. Work began in 2008. It was hard, but meaningful and fulfilling, and promised great potential. Today, the local youth takes an active part in regional studies and promotes Vyatskoye's historical significance to residents and tourists alike. School graduates work voluntarily in the museums. The pride of the museums are the more than 30,000 exhibits, 1,000 of which are included in the Museum of Russia collection. Each museum is remarkable in its own way. The Museum of Russian Entrepreneurship shows the history of the village. Part of the display is based on material from the project The Birds Are Returning to Their Nesting Grounds, something that is unique to Russia. Descendants of local entrepreneurs and clergy gather from around the world in Vyatskoye annually to study history from the differing perspectives of their ancestors. In the Sounds of Time Museum, there is one of the finest collections of musical instruments in Europe. The jewel of the collection being a pipe organ from the Bruges brothers, dating from the first half of the 19th century. One of only 4 in Russia, the Vyatskoye organ is the only instrument in full working order. In the Gorokhov Peasant Trading Museum, one may get acquainted with the daily life of 19th century Russia, learning a little of the life, work and trades of village residents. The Printing Trade Museum has a unique collection of working original and replica printing machines, representing the history of printing in Russia in its entirety. Visitors can even create their own individual souvenir using an old printing machine. Dine in the Restaurant Museum and enjoy the melodic chimes of clocks and timepieces from past centuries. Specialities include Vyatskoye's refreshing, crispy pickled cucumbers, a delicacy known nationwide before the revolution.
В июле месяце будет открыт новый огуречный цех. Это традиционный промысел для Вятского, исторический. В свое время Вятская называлась огуречной столицей России. Это современное производство, но оно основано полностью на старых технологиях. То есть это использование дубовых бочек, это использование...
Соление?
Соление.
А в воду опускаете?
Обязательно. Обязательно с огуречными ямами, так называемыми. Я привез одну цель.
К огурцам больше ничего нет?
У коллег есть.
The Hotel Museum is a great place to retreat from city life and journey back into the past. Each hotel room is dedicated to a historical event or a famous person related to the village. The creative work of author and poet Nikolai Nekrasov is linked to the village. In the poem Who Lives Well in Russia, the author, in describing the village of Kuzminskoye, wrote specifically of Vyatskoye. Recently, a monument to Nikolai Alexeyevich Nekrasov has been erected in the village, and today preparations are underway to celebrate his 200th anniversary. Residents have already given their answer to Nekrasov's famous question, saying, "We live well in Russia." During the year, there are 2 annual festivals, which are held in Vyatskoye during the year. Nekrasov Days in Vyatskoye and Province is the Soul of Russia. Both were initiated by the famous opera singer Lyubov Kazanovskaya, who is a Vyatskoye resident. The Vyatskoye Restoration Project has gained multiple awards. The founder of the Vyatskoye Historical and Cultural Complex, Oleg Zharov, was awarded the State Prize of the Russian Federation in 2011 for his work on the restoration. The complex was given the Main Museum Award in 2015 at the Grand Prix Intermuseum International Festival in Moscow. In 2015, Vyatskoye became the founding member of the Most Beautiful Villages in Russia Association. It is listed amongst the most beautiful villages in the world. Vyatskoye actively seeks to improve and develop international relations. Now Vyatskoye village is twinned with the commune of Semur-en-Brionne, Bourgogne, France. You are welcome to our beautiful village.